This is chapter 8. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about risk management, continuity planning, okay, and PRMIT. Okay. So here we will talk about risk management and how much important it is in the organization. So what is risk management? By definition, you've studied about risk management, I think, in some courses, security and project management. It is the identification, assessment, and prioritization of risks. The main objective of doing a risk assessment is to prioritize. I want to know which risk is more important, most likely to happen. Okay? And it is a key responsibility of every manager. And there are two formal processes in any risk management: risk identification and assessment, and then we need to control the risk. Controlling the risk meaning that either you avoid, mitigate, control, reduce, damage control. Okay. Here they say that you should know the enemy or you should know the risk, in another way. So you need to know in your organization, first of all, you will identify your assets. Okay. And you can use some applications, programs to do that, some tools. Okay. Risk management is a process. Okay. It utilizes safeguards and controls, and that are devised and implemented, are not install and forget devices, which means that you have to keep them up to date, you have to test them, you have to review them. Okay, so you need to identify the threats. Okay, you need to create a list. Okay, the damage, the impact of the risk, the likelihood of this risk to happen. Okay, so risk management in another way is the process of assessing the risks to an organization's information and determining how those risks can be controlled or mitigated. Okay, all clear? Okay, the risk management cycle is very easy. First of all, you need to identify the risk, list them, measure what? The impact, the likelihood, okay, the probability of this risk to happen. And then you give them priority. Okay, priority meaning the one that have high impact and most likely to happen, you'll give it a priority. Okay, so then we need to put the controls. We do also cost-benefit analysis, meaning I need to see, is the control I am putting efficient, or is it too much expensive than even the damage that could happen? So you need to find efficient solutions. And stakeholders, the teams, they should work together. And the team for risk management should have people from information security, IT, management, leadership. They should, part of it will be in the team, and users. So we have already talked about some of the steps. Here we are going to go in details. Identify risk, assess, evaluate controls, determining which control options are cost effective. I already explained that. Should not cost more than the damage of the threat. Acquiring or installing the appropriate controls. Overseeing processes to ensure that the controls remain effective. Summarizing the findings, reporting, documenting, always document. Here we have the steps: identify, analyze, risk mitigation, treat the risk, and risk monitoring, because it's ongoing process. Here we have just some example, yani, according to the, this is just like a chart. Like when an auditor is creating this, they will put a chart and put some of them. But I have given you the full list of steps. So let's talk about asset inventory. What do we do here? We identify all our assets, okay? And we classify them into groups. Yani remember, I think last time I told you we have CapEx. CapEx are capitalized, the things you buy, you can touch, computer. OpEx are operational costs, like what? Membership, subscription, fees. You cannot, yani, they are not they are not tangible. Okay. So we need to identify the assets. They include people, procedures, data, network elements, and so on. And you have to be non-biased when you do this. Like, because, no, I mean, for example, not because I am from IT, I will give high priority to IT assets. That we have to be non-biased. Okay. No prejudging. And what are the attributes you should track? Attribute يعني مثلا from which department, location, date, when it was purchased, things like that. So here we have a sample. Look at it, please. People. We have the management, the components, inside the organization or outside. They are trusted employees and so on. So you need to put the attributes, okay? Look at it. We have software. They can be applications, OS, operating systems, and so on. Also here we have another, here are the attributes. You see, we put serial number, location, who's the user. All these are attributes to the asset. You know, sometimes they put a sticker, like even the chair or the computer, it will have a sticker on the side saying that serial number, things like that. Maybe the chair here has, does it have anything in the back? Yeah, that's it, okay. So here is the card. By the way, this is utilized using a program. There are some applications will help you to create the list. Okay, we have already talked about that. We have talked about also you can do inventory for the procedures. Description, what you are doing, what does it do, the purpose, which software you are using, hardware is used, okay. It is connected to which network, cloud or local network, a location where it is stored, and when should be updated. So again, we have from the attribute people, procedures. So procedure is an asset, okay, and so on. Then we give them ranking. How do we rank them? According to the impact and the value of the asset, okay. And then you need to refine asset classification and give it some category. Especially you need to consider security. If the threat related to security, then you give it, most of the time you'll give it high impact. You give it a priority, okay. Some assets like personnel may require an alternative classification scheme, okay. and so on. Then you need to assign a relative value. What is that value? Here, impact. It's a comparative judgment made to ensure that the most valuable information assets are given the highest priority. I'll show you one example. Okay, like you need to ask yourself, which asset is the most critical to the success of the organization? Which asset generates the most revenue? On the other side, which asset is most expensive to replace? So you think positive and negative ways, and so on. These are the cards we give to the assets. This is an example. Then you give them list in order of importance. Look at this slide. This is an important slide. You see here, you give them a weight from 1 to 100. For example, let's us look at customer request by email. Criteria 0.4. Impact on revenue. Impact on profitability. See, impact on public image is higher, صح؟ لأنه if you are not responding to requests, it will damage the response. See how the numbers are given? So we talked already about identifying lists. You identify the risks. Then also you need to identify the threats. Okay? Such as a threat that presents a unique challenge to information security. Okay? So you need to know which threat is the most dangerous one, which threat might cause the biggest loss. Why we are doing this? Because we want to rank, we want to give them classification. So here we have, for example, threat number 1, act of a human error or failure. For example, accidents and so on. Look at the other ones, you see forces of nature and so on. Here they have given some prioritization from real-world scenarios. They gave a threat, a ranking, 5 point, on a 5 scale, okay, 5-point scale. You see here, and the rest here, which one is the highest? Software attacks, deliberate software attack, very dangerous. Okay. The least one here is deliberate act of information extortion, and so on. So we prioritize them, okay, from 1 to 5. 5 yani catastrophic, God forbid. 1 yani it is very insignificant, yani it does not hurt. قل شيء. You worry about the high ones, okay. Okay. So we have identified, we have prioritized the threats. We have also about the likelihood. Here, likelihood. Possible to happen, most likely to happen, for sure it will happen, will never happen يعني مثلا. Okay. What is vulnerability? Remember you studied it, I think, in your for sure, ethical hacking and penetration test. It's a flaw or weakness in an asset that can be exploited to breach security. All right. So you will see your vulnerabilities, you will identify them, okay, and you will assess them, okay. And then at the end you give a list of assets and their vulnerabilities. Here is an example. Look at it, please. Act of a human error or failure. This is a possible vulnerability. This may happen, okay, and so on. Look here, we have some hardware information extortion also. Not most likely to happen, okay. So here we have, for example, the asset is email server. Vulnerability, if the antivirus software is not updated. What is the threat? Threat يعني الأكشن, virus attack. خلاص? So vulnerability is the weakness, the flaw. My antivirus is not up to date. What is the threat? Virus attack. Okay, same thing, router. Incorrect configuration and so on. So likelihood and consequences اللي هو impact. Okay, I like this table here. A يعني for sure you have to attend this, you have to take care of this. Okay, so consequence. So from here, which one will be the high impact? اللي هي ايش؟ A with what? AE. A with A5 صح؟ A5 يعني God forbids, most likely to happen and catastrophic. Then I have to take care. صح؟ Very good. We have this table, TVA, threat vulnerability assessment. Okay, also we can do this table اللي هو I'll show you now. This table also will give you a diagram to understand, determine where to put your action and priority. Okay. And we have the priorities here. We put the threat according to number, we give them numbers. Okay. And this threat will affect which asset also. And so on. So why we need to do risk assessment? Because risk assessment will help us to create a method to evaluate the relative risks of each listed vulnerability. And we have an equation, by the way. A risk is equal to probability times value, loss value. Okay? This is the simple formula. There is an advanced formula اللي هي risk is equal to probability times of the risk is successful. يعني you understand the difference. يعني احنا we have a risk of sending us some malware maybe 100 times per a week. How many of them could be successful? Let's say 1. So we multiply 10 by 1. Okay. And V is value lost by successful exploitation. we have another detailed formula, which is here we account for the fraction of risk mitigated. نخصمها يعني, we'll deduct this because this is good for us. We have already put some controls. And then we have UK fraction of risk not fully known, يعني unknown. So risk is the likelihood of the occurrence of vulnerability, اللي هو multiplied by the value of information asset minus the percentage of risk mitigated by current controls, plus we need to add the uncertainty part. Okay. Please look at this example. This is math يعني. Usually, if they will give you the cheat sheet, if the formula sheet, if needed, yeah, if it is needed. Okay, here we have this table. You see, we have customer service, asset impact, vulnerability, email, likelihood 0.2, risk rating factor 1, and so on. Finally, last but not least, you need to document everything. In all governance, IT policies, frameworks, everything needs to be documented, reviewed, and updated. Okay? And it should have summary, executive summary of these documents, and version number, when it was created. Okay? What are the deliverables? And so on. You should also have a risk register. Risk register to list all the risks. Okay? Any questions?